We're first going to build our Excel amortization table using Excel formulas rather than Excel functions. We'll only use the function to calculate our loan payment. Begin by picking up our time zero loan balance. So we're going to link to cell C9, and again, let's anchor that since that's going to be a constant reference. Our payment then equals payment, parenthesis, and our interest rate, 10%, number of periods, 10 years, and negative 10,000 for our present value. So we've calculated our payment. We're always going to want to have the same payment. So when we link to cell C12, let's be sure we anchor it with dollar signs in front of both the C and the 12. The interest rate, or interest rate we pay in the first period or year, is going to be equal to our current loan balance of $10,000 times our 10% interest rate. We're always going to want to be coming back to that same interest rate cell, so let's anchor that with dollar signs. Our principal will simply be the difference between our $1,627 payment and our $1,000 we pay in interest. We won't anchor either of these cells. We want relative cell references since we're going to copy this row down. Our remaining loan balance will be our current loan balance of $10,000 minus the amount that's credited towards principal. Now we can go ahead and copy that year one row all the way down. And notice the ending balance is 0 as our loan's paid off. Because we've used the proper cell references, we can change the loan amount and our amortization table changes. We could have changed our interest rate, and our amortization table also changes. Let's go ahead and get back to our initial numbers. And now let's go ahead and build the same amortization table using Excel functions rather than formulas. Again, let's link to our beginning loan balance. We're going to need to use the payment function to calculate the loan's payment. And we're always going to come back to that same payment, so let's anchor it with dollar signs. Again, F4 will put that permanent anchor in. Now for the interest portion of our payment, instead of taking our loan balance times the interest rate, which in this case is probably easier, we might have a situation where we want to use the I payment function. So type in equals I PMT and parenthesis, and this time let's go ahead and bring up our Excel functions by hitting the FX box. The rate on our loan is 10%, and we're always going to come back to that same cell, so anchor it with the dollar sign. Now, we're talking about the interest that we pay, in this case, in the first period. And so we're going to click on cell A17. We won't use any dollar signs to anchor this because this is going to be a relative cell reference as we copy it down our amortization period table. The number of periods in our loan, though, it will always remain 10 years. So let's anchor the reference to cell C11. The present value of our loan's initial balance will always be $10,000. So again, we will anchor that with dollar signs. And again, I'm going to put in a negative sign in front of my present value to ensure that I get a positive amount for the amount of interest on our loan. And again, it's the same $1,000 we calculated in our prior amortization table. For the payment, we're going to use the P payment function. So equals PMT, parenthesis, and again, let's pull up the Excel function box by clicking on FX. Our rate, always going to be coming back to cell C10, so anchor that. The number of periods, we are in the first period of this loan, but we want this to be a relative cell reference, so no dollar signs. Our loan will always have 10 periods, so we're going to want to make sure we use our anchor signs and anchor our dollar signs and anchor the reference to cell C11. And again, negative 10,000, and again, we're always going to want to come back to the same present value, so anchor that with dollar signs or cell references and hit enter. Now, we could easily calculate the loan balance by simply taking our $10,000 and subtracting the amount that we've paid in principal. But let's go ahead, just for the sake of it, and use our Excel's present value function. So equals PV, our interest rate, again, always the 10%, so we're going to anchor it. Now, the number of periods on our loan, after the first year, we have 9 periods left. So what we can do is we can take our initial loan balance, or initial loan term of 10 years, anchor it, and simply subtract off 1 for the number of periods. And then our payment, enter in negative, and we're always going to have the same 1627.45, so we will anchor that. And we can close parentheses. Now, let's go ahead and copy that first row down. Notice, for our present value function, now we would have had 10 minus 2 for the number of years. In our principal, we are picking up the second period out of a 10-year loan, 10% interest rate, and a $10,000 present value. And we can see if we can compare this amortization table with the one from the earlier tab. They are identical and both just as functional. So in this case, it would have been easier to use our probably formulas, mathematical formulas in Excel. There are functions in Excel that will allow us to do the same thing.